I woke to the ghost of his touch, a featherlight brush against my skin that lingered like a promise unkept, my heart slamming against ribs that felt too fragile to contain it. In that split-second haze between dream and dawn, I swore I saw Jordan's shadow retreating, his broad silhouette etched against the skyline of our Brooklyn high-rise, the city below us an indifferent witness to the line we'd just crossed. But when my eyes adjusted to the dim glow of the streetlights bleeding through the blinds, he was gone, slipped back to his side of the room like nothing had happened, leaving me adrift in the wreckage of what-ifs, wondering if the man I'd loved in silence for months had finally cracked open the door to something real, or if it was all just the cruel echo of my own desperate longing. Our apartment on the edge of Bushwick was a sanctuary of chaos, the kind that two broke 20-somethings in New York could afford only by sharing every inch of space and secret. I'd moved in 6 months ago, fresh off a bad breakup with a guy who'd ghosted me after one too many fights about labels and futures, my bank account as empty as my hope for anything uncomplicated. Jordan was the wild-card roommate my Craigslist ad had coughed up, a 24-year-old graphic designer with a laugh that could disarm a room and eyes that held storms you wanted to get lost in. He was straight, or so he said, with a string of casual dates that left lipstick stains on his collars and stories of girls who never quite stuck. Me? Alex Rivera, 25, barista by day, aspiring playwright by night, out and proud since high school, but careful not to let my gaze linger too long on the way his tank top clung to the muscles of his back when he stretched after a run. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm, the kind that blurred lines without ever naming them. Mornings meant coffee brewed strong and black, him teasing me about my endless drafts of half-finished scripts scattered across the kitchen table like confetti from a failed Broadway dream. "You're gonna make it big, Alex," he'd say, clapping my shoulder with that easy grin, his touch always just friendly enough to twist the knife of what it could never be. Nights were for takeout from the halal cart on the corner, binge-watching old Tarantino flicks until the credits rolled and we'd crash on the pull-out couch, our legs tangled innocently under a shared blanket. I told myself it was nothing, that the heat building in my chest was just the radiator kicking on, but God, the way he'd look at me sometimes, over the rim of his beer bottle, mid-laugh, like he was seeing me for the first time. It chipped away at the walls I'd built. That rainy Thursday in October started like any other, the sky outside our 7th-floor window a bruised purple, thunder rumbling like a warning from the gods. I'd slammed the door too hard after a shift at the coffee shop, my apron still smelling of espresso and entitlement from the Upper East Side crowd who'd treated me like I was invisible. Jordan was home early, sprawled on the couch in his faded Knicks jersey, sketching on his tablet with that focused furrow between his brows that made him look younger, more vulnerable. "Rough day?" he asked, not looking up, but his voice had that low timbre that always pulled me back from the edge. "Worse than rough." One asshole tipped me a quarter and said it was for the entertainment. I kicked off my boots, collapsing beside him, our thighs brushing in that accidental way that sent sparks up my spine. He set the tablet aside, turning to face me fully, his hazel eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made the room feel smaller, the air thicker. "That's bullshit. You're worth more than their pocket change." His hand landed on my knee, a squeeze meant to comfort, but it lingered a beat too long, his thumb tracing a lazy circle that ignited something feral in me. I swallowed hard, forcing a laugh to break the spell. "Thanks, man. Hero of the hour." We ordered Thai, pad CEW for him, green curry for me, and cracked open a bottle of cheap Merlot we'd impulse bought at the bodega. The rain picked up, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers, and as the night deepened, conversation turned confessional. Jordan talked about his family back in Atlanta, the pressure from his dad, a stoic mechanic who'd raised him to be strong, not soft, The unspoken expectation to marry some nice girl and give him grandkids. I love him, but sometimes it feels like I'm performing in my own damn life. His voice cracked on the last word, and I reached out, my hand covering his on the couch cushion, our fingers intertwining without thought. "You're not performing here," I said softly, my pulse thundering. "Not with me." He didn't pull away. Instead, his gaze dropped to our joined hands, then lifted to my face, searching, questioning. The room spun a little from the wine, or maybe from the proximity of him, the faint scent of his cedar cologne mixing with the spice of dinner, the warmth radiating from his skin. We talked until the bottle was empty, until the thunder faded to a distant growl, and exhaustion tugged at us like an old friend. I stumbled to bed first, stripping down to boxers in the dim light of our shared room, the queen mattress we'd split with a pillow barrier that felt more symbolic than practical. Jordan lingered in the living room, muttering about finishing a design, but I heard the floor creak under his steps as he finally slipped in, the mattress dipping under his weight. Sleep came heavy, pulling me under with dreams of hands on skin, breaths mingling, a kiss that tasted like rain and regret. That's when it happened, the touch that shattered everything. In the fog of half-sleep, I felt it, fingers ghosting along my arm, tentative, exploratory, tracing the curve of my shoulder like mapping forbidden territory. My breath hitched, but I stayed still, feigning slumber, my body alive with the electricity of it. It was Jordan. I knew it in my bones, his calloused fingertips from hours at the drawing board, the slight tremor in his touch betraying nerves I'd never seen in him. He leaned closer, his breath warm against my neck, a whisper so soft I might have imagined it. "Alex, what the hell am I doing?" My heart was a war drum, every nerve screaming to turn, to pull him down into the truth we'd both been dodging. But fear rooted me. Fear of rejection, of ruining the fragile home we'd built in this city that chewed up dreams and spat out survivors. So I lay there, frozen, as his hand slid lower, brushing the plane of my chest, pausing over my racing pulse. The air crackled with unspoken want, the kind that could ignite or incinerate us both. Then, just as suddenly, he withdrew, the mattress shifting as he rolled away, his back a wall between us once more. Morning came too soon, sunlight slicing through the blinds like accusations. Jordan was already up, humming in the kitchen, the clatter of mugs of forced normalcy that made my stomach twist. I patted out in sweats, rubbing sleep from my eyes, searching his face for any sign of the night before. He handed me coffee, black with a splash of almond milk, his smile easy as ever. "Sleep okay? You were out cold, snoring like a freight train." I forced a chuckle, the lie burning my tongue. "Yeah, dead to the world." "You." Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, something flickered. Guilt? Hunger? It vanished as quick as it came, buried under his shrug. "Same. Big day ahead. Got that client pitch at noon." We danced around it all week, the unspoken haunting every glance, every accidental brush of shoulders in the narrow hallway. Work swallowed me, endless shifts where I'd zone out steaming lattes, replaying that touch in my mind until it felt like a fever dream. Jordan buried himself in deadlines, coming home late with takeout bags and excuses that rang hollow. But the tension built, a pressure cooker with no release valve. One night, after a brutal critique at my writing group where some smug MFA type tore my latest script to shreds, I came home to find him pacing the living room, phone clutched like a lifeline. "Everything all right?" I asked, dropping my bag by the door. He stopped, running a hand over his close-cropped hair, his broad shoulders tense under his hoodie. "Nah, just girl stuff, or lack thereof." He sank onto the couch, gesturing for me to join him. I did, closer than I should have, our knees knocking. "This one from Tinder? We hooked up last weekend, but now she's ghosting. Feels like I'm always chasing something that slips away." My throat tightened. Maybe you're chasing the wrong thing. The words hung there, heavy with subtext, and his eyes snapped to mine, dark and stormy. What do you mean? His voice was low, edged with something raw. I could have backpedaled, laughed it off, but the memory of his touch fueled me. I mean, maybe it's not about her. Or them. Maybe it's right here, in this messed up apartment, with the guy who's been waiting for you to see it. Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Jordan's jaw clenched, his gaze dropping to his hands, strong hands that had sketched beauty and now trembled slightly. Alex, last week. In bed. I didn't mean to. You did. I cut in, my voice steady despite the quake in my chest. And I felt it. All of it. He looked up, vulnerability cracking his facade like lightning through clouds. I'm straight. That's what everyone says. My dad, my friends back home. But with you, it's different. Terrifying. The confession hung between us, a bridge or a bomb. I reached for his hand, and this time, he didn't pull away. Our fingers laced, and the world narrowed to the heat of his palm against mine, the rise and fall of his chest mirroring my own. Terrifying doesn't mean wrong, I whispered. It means real. He surged forward then, closing the distance in a rush of breath and need, his lips crashing into mine with a desperation that stole the air from the room. It was messy, urgent, teeth clashing, hands fisting in shirts, the taste of him like salt and secrets finally spilled. We tumbled back onto the couch, his body pinning mine in the best way, solid and unyielding, every kiss a question answered. God, Alex, he murmured against my neck, his voice wrecked. I've wanted this. Wanted you. For so long. We didn't stop, couldn't, clothes shed in a frenzy, skin on skin under the flicker of the TV we'd forgotten to turn off. His touches were reverent now, no longer tentative, mapping me with a hunger that matched my own. When he entered me, slow and careful, our eyes locked, it was more than release. It was revelation, two souls colliding in the quiet storm of acceptance. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, he traced patterns on my back, whispering apologies and promises into the dark. But dawn brought reality crashing back. Jordan's phone buzzed relentlessly, texts from his sister, a call from his dad checking in, reminders of the world outside our bubble that demanded he play the part. He sat up, rubbing his face, the weight of it etching lines around his eyes. What now? I can't just flip a switch. You don't have to, I said, pulling him close. We figure it out. Together. Yet doubt crept in like fog off the East River. The next weeks were a whirlwind, stolen moments in the shower, his hand slipping into mine during late-night walks through McCarran Park, where the autumn leaves crunched underfoot like fragile hopes. But the outside world pressed in. At a house party in Williamsburg, thrown by mutual friends from his design collective, I watched him tense as someone ribbed him about finally settling down with a girl. He laughed it off, but later, in a shadowed corner, he gripped my arm too tight. They don't get it. I don't even get it yet. Then tell them, I urged, my voice fierce with the love that had rooted deep. Or start with yourself. He tried. God, did he try? Therapy sessions squeezed between gigs, late-night calls to his sister where he'd choke out fragments of truth. I wrote it all into my script. A raw, queer love story set against the grid of New York, two men dismantling walls brick by brick. Jordan read the draft one rainy evening, tears streaking his face as he pulled me into a kiss that tasted like home. This is us, he said, and it's beautiful. But the hauntings lingered, shadows of that first night twisting into nightmares. One evening, after a blowout with his dad over a family visit, when you bringing a woman around, son? Jordan came home shattered, slamming doors and downing whiskey until his words slurred. What if I can't do this? What if I'm just broken? You're not broken, I said, cupping his face, thumbs brushing away tears that scalded my skin. You're brave. And you're mine. We made love that night with a ferocity born of fear, bodies entwining as if to ward off the storm. But the call came at 3 a.m. His dad. Heart attack. Critical. Jordan flew out the next morning, leaving me with a kiss that felt like goodbye and a note. I love you. Don't let go. Atlanta was a trial by fire. I paced our empty apartment, scripting worst-case scenarios, my own family, distant cousins in Queens, texting check-ins that did little to ease the ache. When he returned a week later, thinner, eyes hollowed, he collapsed into my arms at the airport, sobbing against my shoulder. He knows. Told him everything. He hugged me, said he just wants me happy. Relief flooded me, hot and cleansing, as we stumbled home, hands clasped like lifelines. In the taxi, under the neon blur of Manhattan, he turned to me, voice steady for the first time. I'm done hiding. With you. With anyone. Our story didn't end in fireworks or fade to black. It unfolded in the quiet victories. The way he'd introduce me as his partner at brunches with friends who blinked but then smiled. The script that sold to a small indie theater, our love immortalized on stage. That first night still haunts me, not as a ghost of regret, but as the spark that lit the way. In a city that devours the vulnerable, we'd carved out space for truth, for each other. And in Jordan's arms, under the relentless pulse of New York, I finally believed in endings that weren't endings at all, just beginnings, messy and profound, where love wins not by conquering fear, but by holding it close until it transforms. The production of my script, Shadows on the Ledge, premiered off-Broadway in a black box theater tucked into the Village, the kind of spot where dreamers like me went to bleed art onto bare stages. Opening night was electric chaos. House lights dimming to reveal a set mirroring our apartment. Rain projections flickering across brick walls. The audience a mix of queer kids wide-eyed with recognition and skeptics nursing craft beers. Jordan sat front row, his hand finding mine in the dark, squeezing as the actor playing him delivered the line I'd pulled straight from that haunted night. Your touch woke something in me I didn't know was sleeping. Curtain call brought applause like thunder, but it was his whisper in my ear afterward. You did this, Alex. We did this. That made my knees buckle. Backstage, amid hugs from the cast, a diverse crew of trans actors, drag queens moonlighting as understudies, and fresh-faced grads hungry for stories like ours. We stole away to the alley, the summer humidity wrapping around us like a blanket. He kissed me there, against the graffiti-scrawled wall, slow and deep, tasting of champagne and certainty. Proud of you, he murmured, his fingers threading through my hair. Proud of us. But pride was a fragile armor. Jordan's design firm landed a major contract, branding for a queer-owned startup in Soho, and suddenly he was jetting to meetings in L.A., his suitcase a constant companion. I'd catch him staring at his phone during calls home, voice strained as he navigated his dad's fragile recovery, the old man's gruff, love you, son, evolving into tentative questions about that playwright fellow of yours. It was progress, inching forward like the Q train at rush hour, but distance bred doubt. One night, alone in our bed that now felt too vast, I scrolled through his Instagram. Innocent posts of sunsets over the Hollywood Hills, a group shot with colleagues where a woman's arm slung casually over his shoulder. Jealousy gnawed, irrational but insistent, whispering that the world would always pull him back. He sensed it when he returned, dropping his bag in the hall and pulling me into a hug that crushed the air from my lungs. Missed you, he said, nuzzling my neck, but his eyes held shadows. Over dinner, falafel from the truck on Bedford, eaten cross-legged on the floor, he confessed the trip's toll. LA's full of straight guy bullshit. One exec cornered me in the hotel bar, drunk and rambling about figuring out my type. Like I'm some experiment. His laugh was bitter, fists clenched around his fork. I set my plate aside, shifting to face him, my hand on his thigh. You're not an experiment. You're Jordan Hayes, the guy who redrew my world. Our eyes locked, and the vulnerability in his gaze undid me. The same storm I'd seen that first night, now tempered by time, but no less fierce. He leaned in, capturing my lips in a kiss that started soft, exploratory, then deepened into something primal, hands roaming with the urgency of reunion. We migrated to the bedroom, shedding clothes like old skins, the city hum a distant lullaby. He took his time that night, worshipping every inch, kisses trailing fire down my spine, whispers of mine against my hip as he knelt before me, his mouth a revelation of devotion. When I flipped us, pinning him beneath me, his moans were music, body arching into mine like he'd been carved for this. Release came in waves, crashing together, leaving us spent and sated, limbs entwined under the fan's lazy spin. Lying there, sweat slick and breathless, he traced the scar on my collarbone from a childhood bike crash, his touch feather-light. Remember that first night? I thought I'd die of shame if you woke up. I did wake up, I admitted, voice hushed. And it saved me. He propped on an elbow, studying me with that intense gaze. No more ghosts. Promise. But promises are tested in the fire of life. Fall turned to winter, snow blanketing the fire escapes in white silence. And Jordan's firm pushed him harder, overtime bleeding into weekends, his sketches piling up like unspoken resentments. I dove into revisions for the script's second act, drawing from our fights. The one over his forgotten birthday, where I'd accused him of prioritizing deadlines over us. The makeup sex in the shower, water scalding as our bodies forgave what words couldn't. My writing group buzzed with feedback. Make it hurt more, Alex. Lean into the mess. And I did, pouring our raw edges onto the page until it ached like truth. One blizzard night, power out and candles guttering. He came home late, snow-dusted and defeated. Lost the pitch, he muttered, shrugging off his coat. They wanted edgier, whatever that means. I pulled him to the couch, wrapping him in a quilt we'd bought at a flea market in Red Hook. Their loss. You're the edge. He melted into me, head on my chest, and we talked, really talked, about the fears gnawing at him. Coming out at work, the what-ifs of family holidays, the terror that love like ours could shatter under scrutiny. I don't want to lose you, he said, voice muffled against my shirt. You won't, I vowed, tilting his chin up for a kiss that sealed it. Gentle at first, then building to a rhythm that had us shedding layers by firelight. His hands were everywhere, reverent and rough, drawing gasps from me as he mapped familiar territory with renewed wonder. We moved together on the couch, slow and deliberate, every thrust to affirmation, climax building like the storm outside until we shattered in sync, his name a prayer on my lips. Spring thawed the ice, bringing green shoots to the window boxes we'd planted on a whim. Jordan came out publicly, first to his team, a casual "my boyfriend's play is killing it" over lunch that rippled into emails of support and one awkward HR memo. His dad visited, the three of us navigating awkward silences over empanadas at a taqueria in Jackson Heights, my mom's recipe bridging gaps. You're good for him, the old man grunted, clapping my back, and Jordan's grin lit the room brighter than the marquee lights. Yet the haunt returned in subtle ways, a nightmare where that first touch turned to rejection, waking me sweat-soaked and shaking. Jordan held me through it, his arms a fortress. We're past that, he'd murmur, kissing my temple. But if it haunts you, let's exorcise it. We did, one anniversary night in May, recreating that moment, not in sleep, but awake and willing. He touched me as before, tentative fingers on skin, but now with eyes open, voices weaving confessions. It ended in laughter and love, the bed our altar. Summer swelled, the city alive with pride flags snapping in the breeze. My script toured to Chicago, Jordan tagging along for the opening, his hand in mine as we walked Lakeshore Drive at dusk. "This is it," he said, stopping to face me, the water lapping like applause. "The life we built from one touch in the dark." And as the sun dipped, painting the sky in hues of fire, I knew he was right. The haunting had become a hallowed memory, a testament to courage, to the human heart's wild capacity for change. In each other's eyes, we saw not just lovers, but survivors, proof that love, in all its terrifying beauty, could rewrite even the straightest lines into something infinitely more true. The tour expanded unexpectedly, a fringe festival slot in Edinburgh, of all places, pulling us across the Atlantic into a whirlwind of jet lag and kilts. Jordan thrived in the chaos, sketching posters for local queer artists in smoky pubs, his talent blooming under the validation. I, meanwhile, battled stage fright in drafty theaters, the script's words sticking like burrs until his voice from the wings, "Breathe, Alex. You've got this," grounded me. Post-show, we'd wander cobblestone streets hand in hand, stealing kisses under the shadow of Edinburgh Castle, the city's ancient stones whispering approval to our modern love. But distance from home amplified cracks. Calls with his dad grew strained. Updates on recovery laced with probing questions about settling down. Code for the grandkid's dream that lingered like an uninvited guest. My own family, scattered across boroughs, sent passive-aggressive texts about bringing a nice girl to Thanksgiving, oblivious or unwilling to grasp the truth. "They'll come around," Jordan assured me one misty morning, as we shared scones in a cafe overlooking the Firth of Forth. But doubt flickered in his eyes, the same vulnerability that had drawn me to him from the start. Back in New York by September, the city felt renewed. Fall fairs popping up in Prospect Park, the air crisp with possibility. Jordan's firm promoted him to lead designer, a corner office overlooking the Hudson that came with champagne toasts and expectations that chained him to his desk. I landed a fellowship for a new play, Queer Elders Navigating Love in the AIDS Era, research trips to the lesbian herstory archives filling my days with voices long silenced. Our schedules clashed like cymbals, dinners reduced to microwave burritos and exhausted debriefs, intimacy squeezed into hurried mornings where his quick kisses tasted of toothpaste and haste. The strain peaked on a Friday, rain lashing the windows as I waited up, script revisions glaring accusingly from my laptop. He stumbled in at midnight, tie askew, reeking of craft beer from a networking happy hour. "Sorry," he slurred, collapsing beside me. "Client schmoozing. You know how it is." I closed the laptop, heat rising. "I know you're killing yourself for them. But us? We're fading." His head snapped up, eyes bleary but sharpening. "Fading? Alex, this is for us. Stability, a future. A future where we barely see each other." My voice cracked, the words I'd bottled spilling out. "I love you, but I need you here, not chasing shadows." He stood, pacing, hands raking through his hair. "Shadows? Like the one from that night? You think I don't carry it too? Every day, fighting to prove I'm not. Whatever they say." The fight escalated, voices rising over the storm, accusations flying like shrapnel, me calling out his workaholism, him snapping about my endless brooding over scripts. It culminated in slammed doors, him storming to the spare room we'd turned into a studio, me curling on the couch with tears hot on my cheeks. Sleep evaded, the rain a relentless echo of that first night's thunder. Dawn brought regret, heavy as humidity. I found him at the kitchen table, head in hands, a half-eaten bagel abandoned. "I'm sorry," he said without preamble, voice raw. "You're right. I've been running scared." I slid into the chair beside him, our knees touching. "Me too. Let's stop." What followed was a reckoning. Therapy, not just for him now, but couple sessions in a sunlit office overlooking Gramercy Park, where we unpacked the hauntings layer by layer. His therapist, a no-nonsense dyke with a buzz cut and zero tolerance for bullshit, challenged him. Straight? Gay? Labels are maps, not cages. What's your North Star? Jordan's answer, week after week, circled back to me. My laugh in the mornings, the way I hummed show tunes while cooking, the steady anchor of my love. Mine unraveled too, the fear of abandonment rooted in that college ghosting. The script's success a mask for insecurity. I worry you'll wake up one day and choose easy over us. I confessed, tears streaming as Jordan held my hand across the circle of trust. Never, he vowed, pulling me into his lap right there, the therapist chuckling indulgently. You're my choice. Every damn day. Rebuilding was deliberate, romantic in its grit. Date nights enforced. Picnics in the High Line at sunset, where he'd pack arepas from his mom's recipe, feeding me bites between kisses that drew wolf whistles from passers-by. We joined a queer running club in the Heights, pounding pavement along the waterfront, his hand brushing mine post-run, slick with sweat and solidarity. Sex reignited too, playful and profound. Lazy Sundays in bed, exploring with toys we'd shyly ordered online, his gasps as I took control, a symphony of surrender. Winter holidays tested us anew. His family flew up for Christmas, a boisterous crew from Atlanta filling our apartment with collard greens and gospel records. His dad, frielier but fierce, pulled me aside by the tree, twinkling lights casting halos. Heard your play? Made an old man think. A gruff embrace followed, the kind that mended more than words. My cousins showed up too, tentative at first, but warming over spiked eggnog, one auntie whispering, You light 'em up, Mijo. That's family. New Year's Eve, we rang in the decade on our fire escape, champagne flutes clinking as fireworks bloomed over the skyline. To us, he toasted, drawing me close, his body a shield against the chill. The kiss that followed was fireworks of its own, deep, unhurried, promising eternity. We made it back inside just in time, tumbling into bed with laughter, bodies joining in a dance as old as time, his whispers of love syncing with my cries of release. Spring brought bloom, my new play greenlit for a run at the Public, Jordan's designs featured in a MoMA exhibit on queer visual culture. We adopted a rescue mutt, Luna, a scrappy terrier mix who claimed the foot of our bed, her snores a comic counterpoint to our midnight murmurs. That first night's haunt, it evolved into lore, retold over brunches with friends, a tale of ignition rather than injury. Yet life, ever the dramatist, scripted a final act twist. In June, during Pride, Jordan collapsed mid-March. Exhaustion masked as a migraine, but tests revealed early burnout, his body demanding the rest his ambition denied. Hospital lights were harsh, beeping monitors a stark reminder of fragility, but he squeezed my hand, voice weak but sure. Don't let go. I won't. I promised, kissing his knuckles, the room shrinking to just us. Recovery was slow, a summer of park benches and herbal teas, me reading scripts aloud while he sketched from a lounge chair. It stripped us bare, revealing love's quiet power, not grand gestures, but the daily grace of soup stirred at midnight, walks where we'd pause to watch the ferries slice the harbor. You saved me, he said one golden afternoon, as Luna chased squirrels in Fort Greene Park. We saved each other, I corrected, pulling him down for a kiss under the jacaranda blooms, petals raining like confetti. By fall, he was back, stronger, boundaries drawn like lines in a blueprint. Our story, once haunted, now hummed with harmony, a gay love forged in the crucible of one stolen touch, emerging resilient, radiant. In the end, it wasn't about labels or lines crossed. It was the human truth that connection, messy and miraculous, outshines every shadow. And in Jordan's eyes, I saw our forever, not perfect, but profoundly ours. 2 years blurred into a tapestry of triumphs and tender mercies, the apartment evolving from crash pad to haven. Walls lined with Jordan's framed sketches, my Tony-nominated poster, a wild dream come true, hung crooked above the mantel. We'd outgrown the space, whispers of a bigger place in Harlem floating like possibilities. But nostalgia kept us rooted. The queen bed still witnessed to nights where his touch reignited that original spark, no longer haunting but holy. Jordan's growth unfurled like one of his designs, bold, iterative. He mentored young queer artists through a nonprofit he'd co-founded, workshops in Bushwick lofts where kids with stories like ours found voice. "You're changing lives," I'd tell him, watching him animate under fluorescent lights, his passion a mirror to the man I'd glimpsed in the dark. His dad visited often now, the two bonding over Knicks games on our couch, commentary laced with easy affection that once seemed impossible. "Told Ma about you too," he'd say post-game, clapping our shoulders. "She wants recipes, Alex. Says your writing's got soul like her gumbo." My work flourished too. The elder play earning Obie Whispers, a commission for a Netflix limited series on Stonewall survivors, pulling me into writers' rooms buzzing with diverse voices, trans directors from the Bronx, non-binary composers channeling Nina Simone. Jordan joined me at table reads, his feedback sharp as ever, but now infused with pride that swelled my chest. "This is your legacy," he'd say, fingers tracing mine under the conference table, a secret anchor in the storm of deadlines. Challenges came, as they do, a flare-up with his sister, who after years of support confessed her church's lingering judgments, words cutting deep enough to reopen old wounds. We fought about it in the kitchen, voices echoing off tile, me accusing him of excusing bigotry, him retorting I didn't understand family ties. "Blood's thicker," he snapped, and I fired back. "So is love, if you let it be." Doors slammed, silence stretched, but pride didn't win, contrition did. He called her the next day, boundaries set firm, and she apologized, tearful, over video chat from Atlanta. "I love you both," she said, and the knot in my gut loosened. We celebrated small victories with rituals, tacos from the truck where we'd first confessed, eaten on the fire escape as Luna begged for scraps, weekend getaways to the Catskills, hiking trails where we'd collapse by streams, making love under star-pricked skies, his body a landscape I never tired of exploring. Sex remained our sacrament, evolving with us. Adventurous forays with silk ties and whispered commands, or soft reunions after long days, where touches spoke volumes words couldn't. The true test arrived unannounced, a positive test of another kind. One crisp October morning, Jordan woke queasy, chalking it up to bad takeout, but weeks of fatigue and mood swings sent us to the clinic. "Not possible," he muttered in the waiting room, hand clammy in mine. But the doctor confirmed it. Low-grade anemia from stress, compounded by a vitamin deficiency, treatable, but a wake-up call. "Slow down," she advised, prescribing rest and a nutritionist. He took it hard, the vulnerability clashing with his self-image as the strong one. Nights, he'd pace, muttering about weakness, until I'd pull him to bed, holding him as sobs racked his frame. "I'm scared," he admitted, face buried in my neck, "of not being enough." "You're everything," I whispered, kissing away salt, our bodies seeking solace in familiar rhythms, slow, healing, his surrender a gift that mended us both. Recovery wove gratitude into our days. Farmers market brunches with Luna in tow, her tail wagging as we sampled heirloom apples. Pottery classes in Ditmas Park, where our lopsided mugs became kitchen staples, symbols of imperfect beauty. As winter deepened, we decided on the move, a brownstone in Harlem, with a garden for Luna and a sunlit office for my writing. Packing unearthed relics. That first notebook with my script scribbles, Jordan's old Tinder printouts we'd burned in a laugh-fueled bonfire. From ghosts to this, he marveled, taping a box labeled us. The new place breathed life. High ceilings echoing our laughter, windows framing Marcus Garvey Park's ancient sycamores. Housewarming drew our circle, his design crew with craft IPAs, my theater fam with drag brunches promised, his dad grilling ribs on the stoop, my auntie leading conga lines inside. Amid the chaos, Jordan pulled me aside to the backyard, string lights twinkling overhead. "Marry me?" he asked, down on one knee in the dirt, a simple band glinting in his palm, white gold, engraved with whispers in the dark. Tears blurred my yes, our kiss sealing it under a canopy of stars, guests erupting in cheers they'd clearly anticipated. Planning was a joyful frenzy, a rooftop ceremony in summer, vows written in our voices, a cake topped with 2 grooms in tiny sneakers. The day dawned golden, Harlem alive with bass lines from block parties, our suits crisp linen, Jordan's eyes shining as he walked the aisle to a string quartet playing at last. Vows exchanged poured from the soul. Mine, a poem of that first touch as Genesis. His, a promise to choose us daily, through haunts and horizons. Rings slid on, kisses sealed, and the reception pulsed with toasts. His sister, redeemed and radiant. My mentor, toasting resilience. We danced under lanterns, bodies swaying to Etta James, his hand warm at my waist, the world fading to just us. Moonlight found us on the roof, city sprawl a glittering sea. "Still haunts me," I murmured, nuzzling his neck. "Good," he replied, spinning me close. "It's our origin story. Years folded forward, adoptions considered, a kid's room painted sky blue, my Broadway debut, Jordan's keynote at AIGA on queer design. The haunt? A cherished scar, proof of transformation. In the end, our love wasn't a conquest over straight lines or societal gales. It was the quiet revolution of 2 hearts, entwined in defiance and delight, whispering that true meaning blooms not despite the dark, but because of it. And in each dawn, wrapped in him, I knew we'd haunt each other forever, beautifully, boundlessly alive.